This is The Wealth Puzzle with Michael Mansfield from the Lynn Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Michael provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is The Wealth Puzzle with Michael Mansfield.
Hey everybody, it's Mike Mansfield. Thanks for joining me. Wanted to circle back from our recording last couple weeks ago. We did a video about Bidenomics. Honestly, got a lot of entertaining emails in many different ways that I'll kind of touch on in a second. But hey, first and foremost, solo flight today. No Tana, she'll be back in the next week or so. Wanted to touch on the Schwab thing. So finally, Schwab purchased TD Ameritrade back in 2019. It's been a handful of years. They finally went through the rebranding process over Labor Day weekend. On our side, everything for the most part came over without any hitches. All of the accounts got updated. All the money showed up. All the positions were there. So everybody, as you log in, you'll notice all of that is in place. A couple things we're noticing. There's definitely some basic workflow things. Married clients might not be seeing their spouse's accounts at the moment, things like that. So there's just some small quirks, as you would imagine, with any big change that's going to get ironed out. Also, navigating a new website, even for us, we've been using the Schwab portal for a while, and even from being on TD Ameritrade for years, little quirky, a few more things to kind of work out and sort out. So we're getting there. If you have any questions, just give the office a call. We can help you sort through anything you got going on. But in any case, kind of down to business here. So, we touched on Bidenomics a few weeks ago, talking about, is it causing a recession? We went through some very interesting data points that we feel are very relevant. Honestly, all that happens every single week is more data rolls out. That more data that rolls out kind of only keeps making my point, I think. I mean, even last Friday, jobs numbers came out a lot lighter than people thought. Things just seem to be kind of softening out there. From a point of rhetoric, though, I thought what was interesting is I always get feedback, and I love feedback. I want to know what you're all thinking. I want to know if you have questions, curiosities, concerns. But one thing kind of jumped on me, which then prompted me to spend some time sorting it out. But I had someone challenge me on Biden versus Trump, which I didn't bring up Trump. I was talking about current economic state with the current president, current policies. And someone said, hey, you know what? You're being a little hard on Biden. To be fair, Biden's stock market has done dramatically better than Trump's stock market. And I thought, what a weird comment. You can talk about a lot of different things to compare time periods and whatnot, but to compare the stock market during the Trump time period and the Biden was kind of a surprising one. I wasn't expecting someone to do that and say that. And so what I did is I spent some time making a spreadsheet. I like spreadsheets, right? And so in the spreadsheet, let me kind of pop it up on my screen. What I did here is we went in and we built out, and I know it's probably hard to see for a lot of people that are looking at this, but we went in and during the Trump time period, you kind of see down on the right, we came in and we built out the S&P 500. And what I did is I went in and I put the returns for the S&P 500 in that time period. So for example, from 2017 to 2018, the stock market was up 21.8%. And then the following year is down 4%. And then the following year is up 30%. And then the following year is up 18%. And so when you look at the 4 years of the Trump stock market, we can see that the total return on there was just over 67% in 4 years. In and of itself, very nice. But we want to compare things apples to apples. It's hard to compare things in different time periods because it's the value of the dollar, it's purchasing power, it's all of these things. And so what we did is we wanted to come in and we wanted to adjust for inflation because I think that that's very appropriate, right? Just because the stock market's going up. For a lot of people, the stock market's not always real because it's money in an account somewhere else. You can't touch it till someday. At the same token, though, eggs are more expensive, gas is more expensive. And so what this column is here that I'm now highlighting, that column, these are all the inflations for those given years. So for example, between 2017 and 18, average inflation was 2.1%, then 2.4, then 1.8, then 1.2. And so we went in during that Trump stock market, and we adjusted those returns for inflation. So net, when Trump was all done, his stock market was up just shy of 60%. It was 59.844% over those 4 years. Okay, so that's what we call simple weighting. Simple weighting is we just do pluses and minuses. We got the market up 20%. We got the market down 6%. We got the market up 30%. We're just plussing and minusing those to come up with those total simplified returns. Now, Biden, he's not done with his 4 years. He's got some more time to go mathematically here, right? He's got another, I don't even know what do we got, 16 more months, maybe something like that to get through the major term there. So what's happened so far? So year one, looking good, right? Biden came out of the gates with a gross return of 28.7%. 2022 was a little rougher while Biden was president, down 18%. This year, currently, we're up about 14%. So you can kind of see those down below. But once again, so when you look at where Biden's at year to date for the last 2.5 years, roughly, he's got a stock market that is up about 24%. So obviously trailing Trump at the moment. Absolutely. He's got a long way to go, even if we don't talk about inflation in the next 16 months to really even get tied up here. You guys don't need to see my emails. So then what did we do? We went in and we added that inflation column in there. What is inflation? Well, inflation has been cooking because the government has been spending. And we talk about this constantly, right? The money supply. We expanded the money supply dramatically in 2021 into 2022. That created a lot of external inflation. And so when you adjust for inflation and you do simple weighted returns, so remember, that's just kind of plussing and minusing stuff. Here, let me take all this highlight off so it's not so confusing. All of a sudden, Biden's stock market net is up just under 7% in totality in the last 2.5 years. So dramatic disparity in total return on the stock market. Number one, without inflation, certainly dramatic with inflation. Now, purchasing power is something that's a little different too. So what we were looking at on here is we said, okay, well, what if you had put $100 in when Trump started? What if you had put $100 in when Biden started? You're looking at how that money worked against the S&P 500 with inflation. Because returns, the way it compounds on actual money is different than the way the return looks on a piece of paper. What I mean is when the stock market, if you start with $100 and you get a 20% return, you've got $120. But if you lose 25%, you don't just lose 25% on that original $100, you lose it on the 120. So you lose more than you originally started with. And so what's interesting is when you look at compounding math, and this is truly fascinating down here on the right. I mean, the chart is showing the same thing. But if you started with Trump with $100, when he was all said and done, that $100 was worth $169. So even though Trump's stock market was only up 59.8%, inflation adjusted, the dollar was really up almost 70%. When you adjust for the compounding piece of that happening inside of there. So pretty dramatic. Whereas you take Biden's inflation adjusted dollar, you put $100 in when Biden started as presidency. Right now, that thing's worth $99.91. So even though he is mathematically in the green, ironically, the purchasing power of the dollar is not. So, I didn't want to harp on this. I never planned on even talking about this stuff. I was just truly bamboozled by the feedback I had gotten from one of you that made me want to think, well, how many people think that? How many people are confused? I did mention in the first video that we confuse the idea of politics about beauty contests and personality contests, when the reality is it should be policy contests and math contests. And so that's tough because we get so consumed being polarized by these humans instead of just looking at the facts on the ground. Let me take that off. Let me add another one on here though. Once again, based on some feedback we got on the last video. So we had somebody reach out and say, let me see, I'm sorry, I'm multitasking here. And they said, gosh, I apologize. I'm losing my mind. I shouldn't be trying to do all this at once. What they said was, they said that the Trump stock market, well, the Trump stock market, what about the tax liability, right? So Trump put in a bunch of tax cuts, gave taxes to the rich people. That's what's created all of the issues. That's what's created all of our deficits and things of that nature. And I wanted to touch on that. So what I did, actually, Connor, our tax guy, did this. He was able to go into the IRS website. IRS, this is the literal download of the IRS website. So this shows the IRS. So you can go to the IRS website and pull the same document down. I didn't jazz it up or do anything fancy with it at all. But what it shows is it shows total tax revenue with the IRS. And so it shows, you can kind of see that total column there at the top, and then it runs across the line with how much tax revenue has been collected. And then it breaks it down with individual and business income tax and other taxes. So that's estate taxes, gift taxing, other things of that nature. And it's a really interesting thing to look at, because remember, Trump, when he was president, remember, this is where all this criticism is. And I don't care about Trump. What I care about is tax policy. I care about the effectiveness of this kind of stuff in our economy and the benefit of it in our economy. And so when you look at this, tax policy was changed legally in 2017, but it did not go onto the physical books until 2018. 2018 was the first year that you had tax policy now changed. And remember the rhetoric, and we've heard this all along, is we gave a bunch of tax cuts to the rich. Well, rich pay most of the taxes. So if they got a bunch of tax cuts, what that should mean over time is it should mean that we're making dramatically less tax revenue, which will then only mean that we're collecting less. Our deficits are all spiraling out of control, all because of this horrible policy. And so what we do is we can look at these 5 years where we've had this new tax policy in place. And remember, this tax policy is set to expire at the end of 2025. And what we look at is we look at the number one, the total tax liability. So if we looked at the difference between 2017 and 2018, remember, 2018 is when all the tax cuts were in place. Well, wait a second. Total tax revenue went up. It went up by about $50 billion. Well, I have to admit, on face value, I'm confused already, because I was told that everybody got these big giant tax cuts. Businesses got giant tax cuts. This was a slaughtering of tax liability to the wealthy. Therefore, our tax revenue should be going down. You then look at between 2018 and 19. It's up $100 billion. Okay, that's confusing. Now, 19 to 20 is a little misleading year, right? What happened in 2020? Anybody remember? Oh, COVID hit. What did we do? We slashed tax liability that year. We laid off 20 million people. We put everybody on unemployment. We gave out stimulus checks. We did all of these things that traditionally about 45% of taxpayers actually don't pay any tax at all. Whereas in 2021, there were so many benefits, so many rollouts, so many incentives based on COVID, 61% of taxpayers didn't pay any tax at all. And so even though we had dramatically less people paying tax, we see our tax revenue went down a little bit. It went from $3.5 trillion down to, what did we lose? About 50, 70, maybe $1 billion between those 2 years. So it went down a little bit. Ironically, though, 2020, even with all those softening and liabilities, was still higher than 2017. Remember, that was before all the tax cuts. And then we get to 2021 and 2022. In 2022, we collected almost $5 trillion in tax revenue. Now remember, in 2017, when all the rich people got all those tax incentives, according to the headlines, we were collecting $3.4 trillion. Now we're getting almost $5 trillion. What an insane difference in revenue. Now, you can go into subcategories, and I think this is really powerful and separate way to look at stuff. Remember, we have two types of main taxes that we're focused on. Our corporations paying taxes and our individuals paying taxes. Now, tax liability went down for everybody in every tax bracket. Standard deductions were doubled. Once again, almost half of taxpayers don't pay any tax at all. And so between 2017 and 18, you notice something. There was a massive increase over $100 billion in individual income tax. Well, that's amazing, because tax rates went down, tax brackets went down, standard deductions doubled, right? Tax credits for kids increased. Now, business revenue went down. So we had $300 billion in 2017 down, to something in 2019. So we can see that tax revenue collection for businesses definitely went down. So we gave these tax cuts to the rich folks. But the question is, what did they do with the money? And we can tell by the individual income tax column the way that increased, we can tell that a lot of that money from the business tax reduction fed back into hiring more people, giving more raises, and paying it back through the individuals into the economy, which was huge. You then fast forward to 2022, almost $500 billion was collected from businesses, when in 2017, the old laws that everyone seemed to like better because they weren't giving all these breaks, it was only $338 billion. So over the last handful of years, there's been a dramatic increase in business tax revenue, individual income tax collection. People are paying more taxes. And that's, so to say that the tax cuts were a bad thing is a total fallacy. Mathematically, the country is collecting more tax revenue than they've ever collected before. Whew, that was a rant. See, I even stumbled today with a couple of goofy spots. I was too busy trying to kind of bounce around on all this stuff. So I just wanted to touch on those. Like I said, those were a couple of the interesting feedbacks I got. One was criticism of tax policy. One was criticism of, obviously, presidents versus stock markets. To be honest, do I think Trump is the only catalyst of why the stock market was high? No. Do I think Biden's the only catalyst of why the stock market's low? No. The problem is the way it works when you're a president. If there's anything good going on, you take all the credit for it. And if there's anything bad going on, you blame the last person. And so it's impossible to really quantify in these 4-year blocks what, why, when, where. Obviously, that totally true in the first 12 months, absolutely. But after that, as policies and adjustments happen, then you can more and more forcefully force it to the current president at hand. And so to that theme, we got to give credit to those 4 years to whoever's sitting at the helm at the moment. So anyways, I didn't mean this to be a crazy kooky rant. I just wanted to touch on some of the emails I had got. Like I said, if you're with Schwab, if you have any questions about the change in the adjustments, give the office a call, 805-500-7035. Next week, I'll have Tana on here, so this can be better tempered with a positive energy of not me just ranting about crazy stuff. But other than that, I hope everybody has a great week, and I will be bugging y'all soon enough. Take it easy.